The alchemist who boiled men for gold. The sun was dying, not in fire, but in cold silence, a pale, colorless disk dragging itself behind the trees like a wounded beast. Smoke curled from the chimney of the hermit's hut, dark and acrid, too thick for pine, too wet for hearthwood. The smoke carried whispers, the kind peasants swore they heard when the wind stalled and the birds held breath. Inside, the light did not move. Candles burned low, each flame barely a flicker beneath the heavy weight of damp stone and breathless dread. Rows of glass jars lined the walls like mourners at a silent mass, their contents impossible to mistake. Tongues dried into leathery twists. Teeth too many for any one man. Blood, thick and black in stoppered vials, humming gently like sleep just before death. Brother Matthew, though he had not answered to that name in years, moved among them. His robe, once the color of parchment, was now dark as scorched wool. His fingers, stained from mercury and sulfur, bore the memory of prayers he no longer spoke. His left eye twitched from the fumes. His right hand shook from the weight of belief. He had once belonged to the order of Saint Firminus, a scribe and healer, known for his gentle eyes and his careful hands. But faith had limits. The Codex had none. He found it wedged inside a corpse in Venice, the body floating beneath the docks, waterlogged and reeking of cloves. The book was wrapped in oilskin, sealed with tar and wax. He should have burned it. But when he touched it, it pulsed with heat, as though it breathed. Inside were no hymns. Only equations. Anatomical diagrams. Rituals written in broken Latin and something older, older than the Church, older than Rome. He read it for 7 nights. By the 8th, he no longer slept. The words did not just speak. They instructed. The promise was not resurrection. Not salvation. It was gold, not of kings, but of essence. Gold pulled not from earth, but from men. Gold born in agony. It began with beasts. Pigs. Dogs. Their blood was thin, their marrow weak. Then he turned to the dying, lepers, drunks, and debtors. The kind no one searched for. But it was not enough. The Codex was clear, the soul must resist. There must be struggle. Only then does it yield the golden seed. So he learned to invite the living. He posed as a healer, a man of sacred tinctures and rare balms. He offered peace to the ill. But peace was not what they found. Beneath the floorboards, bones lay in silence. Too many to count now. Too many names to remember. He documented each trial with the obsession of a priest preparing scripture. He made notes in the margins of the Codex with sharpened bone dipped in ink and blood. Some pages had grown slick with oils and tears. Others curled from heat, edges scorched by the breath of failure. But he was close. He knew it. The last batch had yielded something, a coin, soft and glowing, stamped by no king's hand. It had the weight of sorrow. The scent of something not alive, but not yet dead. He stared into the crucible often, whispering names he had long forgotten. The stone is not a myth, he murmured, just, very expensive. Beyond the window, snow had begun to fall, slow and silent, a blanket for a world already buried in secrets. In the valley below, peasants dared not name him aloud. But they whispered of fire in the trees, of men who vanished like fog. A child once returned home with a coin, warm to the touch, though the air was bitter. The coin melted in his sleep. The villagers call him many things. The hermit of fire. The forest devil. The last alchemist. But in his own mind, he remains only a vessel. A tool for the codex. He wears a ring of teeth around his neck, each one once a vow, each one a soul extracted too soon. He no longer eats. He drinks only what he calls clarity, a thin, black liquid that bubbles when left alone. He speaks less and listens more. The codex now whispers without ink. And tonight, there is a knock. 3 times. Soft, like a prayer. The wind does not move. The birds do not call. Even the fire seems to wait. His breath hitches. Behind the door, perhaps, a leper. A pilgrim. A lost boy. Or something else. A voice speaks. Please. I was told you could help. It is always help they want. He lights another candle. Dips a cloth in lavender and piss, the scent dulls fear. He opens the door. There, in the snow, stands a woman. Eyes sunken. Face pale. Hands trembling. He welcomes her in. Not with kindness, but with... He no longer eats. He drinks only what he calls clarity, a thin, black liquid that bubbles when left alone. He speaks less and listens more. The codex now whispers without ink. And tonight, there is a knock. 3 times. Soft, like a prayer. The wind does not move. The birds do not call. Even the fire seems to wait. His breath hitches. Behind the door, perhaps, a leper. A pilgrim. A lost boy. Or something else. A voice speaks. Please. I was told you could help. It is always help they want. He lights another candle. Dips a cloth in lavender and piss, the scent dulls fear. He opens the door. There, in the snow, stands a woman. Eyes sunken. Face pale. Hands trembling. He welcomes her in. Not with kindness, but with purpose. Another weight for the boiling pot. Another vessel for the dream. Behind them, the wind picks up. A crow calls once, then falls silent. The codex rests on the table. Its pages flutter, though no breeze touches them. And beneath the floor, the bones begin to shift. The soul must resist. The next chapter waits in the heat. The moon sags low in the sky, as if it, too, has grown weary of watching. Its pale light barely touches the frost-laced grass along the riverbank. Every blade sparkles like glass, yet nothing stirs. Only the smoke lives here. Thick, dark, and slow, it coils up from the forge like something ancient breathing beneath the earth. The alchemist's lair sits sunken beside the water, buried in the gnarled roots of ash trees, their bark flayed by storms and years. The forge glows from within like a cursed lantern, never extinguished, never silent. Steam hisses from a hanging chain, dripping black water into the boiling vat below. The sound is soft, like a whisper at confession, or a tongue repeating scripture in a forgotten dialect. Inside, the alchemist does not move. His back is curved like a broken bow. His robes, once red as crushed cochineal, now hang in soot-dark folds around him. Bandages wrap his fingers where skin has peeled away. His nails are gone, offered to the process or simply worn down by repetition. He scratches words into vellum with a sharpened quill. The ink is thick and red-brown, not from iron or soot, but from bile. Gall. Blood harvested from his own liver, drop by drop. The inkpot beside him breathes. Not in rhythm, but in pulses. Slow. Organic. Alive. He does not look up. Not when the wind rattles the shutters. Not when bones in the ceiling beam shift in the heat. He is writing. Transcribing what he calls the distillations of the soul. The script is not Latin, nor Greek. It is older. Curved like claw marks. Fragmented like memory. Once, long ago, he had a name. He walked in silks beneath stained glass windows. He served a Hungarian duke, crafting potions for mistresses and perfumes to mask the scent of disease. He turned crushed flowers and burnt feathers into vials that shimmered like dew. The nobles called him a miracle. A golden tongue, they said, one who made desire from dust. But what he wanted could not be found in gardens or palaces. Not in coins or titles. He sought the secret of birth without womb, of wealth without labor, the impossible transfiguration, gold not dug, but made. When war came, the velvet halls collapsed in fire. Cannon split the walls of churches and men alike. The duke bled in his throne, still clutching a bottle of oil-slicked cologne. And the alchemist, silent amid the flames, gathered his furnace and his books, forbidden volumes wrapped in waxed goat skin, and disappeared into the woods. There, beneath frost and silence, he began again. The walls of his forge are built from monastery stone, each brick stolen from sacred ruin. He carved crucibles from relics, chalices stolen from abbeys, melted down and reshaped to withstand flame hotter than any smith's forge. His scales, blackened and cracked, once weighed coins for kings. Now, they balance bones. Teeth. Drops of marrow. Sins. He discovered that the body, broken with precision, speaks. When reduced to its smallest parts, the flesh offers secrets the Arabs only whispered of. The human soul, when ruptured by terror or pain, gives off a residue. An essence. Invisible to the eye, but heavy in the air. He believes it is this substance that holds the key to transmutation. And so he captures it. Boiling not for cruelty, but for alchemy. He watches the vat bubble as though it speaks back. He sees faces in the steam. Once, the eyes of a boy blinked at him through the mist before dissolving into gold dust. The alchemist didn't flinch. He no longer counts the bodies. Each is simply another element, another test. The villagers in the valley dare not speak his name aloud. They wake to find tiny bones scattered among their fields, shin bones the size of fingers. Birds vanish into his chimneys. The trees near his forge bloom out of season, with fruit that rots from the inside. A priest once arrived, cross held high, fire trailing behind him. He came shouting absolution. He did not leave. The alchemist still wears his charred rosary, wrapped around the neck of a raven nailed above the door. Now, he speaks only to his crucibles. They answer in steam, in shifting color. In whispers only he understands. He waits. Not impatiently. Not hungrily. But like a man who knows the final step is near. In his dreams, he no longer sees gold. He sees light. A light so bright it sears through skin, through memory. He believes he has glimpsed God, not in heaven, but in the molten gleam of human marrow. In the shimmer left behind when the last scream fades. Outside, the river moves slower than blood. The trees sway without wind. And in the shadows beyond the forge, another traveler approaches. Boots crunch frost. Breath mists in the cold. A woman. She carries a small pouch of teeth. Her child's. She comes not for healing, but for trade. The alchemist opens the door. The fire inside breathes. And the next chapter begins. The crow pecks once, twice, then takes flight into the red hush of evening. Its wings slice through the mist like a blade through velvet. Behind the salted hide nailed to the stone frame, the window breathes out a slow, warm fog, rising from a chamber steeped in the stench of burnt marrow and thickened bile. Inside, beneath the low timbers and cracked beams, shadows ripple across walls smeared with soot and scripture. The boy stands near the basin, shoulders rigid, stomach clenched. His hands, thin, raw, trembling, grip a rod carved from you, darkened at the end from fire and something deeper. Before him, the copper vessel boils gently, like a thing alive. The contents churn in shades of rust and pitch. Bubbles swell and burst, releasing whispers, unintelligible, but heavy with memory. The scent coils up, scorched hair, decayed wine, a sweetness beneath it all that should not exist. The alchemist hums, barely audible, swaying as he leans over the basin. His robe is torn at the hem, stained with years of failure. Beneath the hood, his eyes shimmer with a heat not of fever, but conviction. Gold sleeps in the liver, he murmurs again. But you must sing it awake with pain. The boy does not understand, not fully. But he remembers the shimmer. A month ago, he watched a crucible cool beneath moonlight, and saw something float to the top, an oily gleam, more beautiful than coin. The alchemist had dipped a finger into it and smeared it across the boy's brow. You see, he whispered. Faith is not prayer. It is blood that keeps singing after the body is gone. The boy had not slept that night. He dreamt of teeth floating in boiling water. Of a hand, his own, reaching for help, then hardening into gold. He was born to thatched roofs and bitter winters. His father bled into straw after stepping on a nail. His mother died birthing a sister who never cried. There was no feast, no priest. Only hunger. So when the hooded man came down from the hill offering meat and fire, the boy followed. He expected warmth. Not this. The tower is built from old monastery stone, mortared with ash, braced with ribs. The wind winds through the arrow slits, carrying with it the sound of chains brushing the floor somewhere beneath. There are no books, only scraps of monks' robes, flattened vellum scratched in ink that bites through the page. Test numbers. Names. Short phrases. Too clean. Too young. Too afraid. On the far wall, a set of tools hangs like relics, knives shaped like crescent moons, bone drills, glass tubes cloudy with residue. One is carved from what the boy now knows was a saint's femur. It is hollow, but hums when held. The mortar is always warm. Once, the alchemist had been a physician in the court of the Rhine. He spoke of the Baroness like she had been a muse. She believed I cured her, he says often. That was the cure. He smiles as he says it, but not with joy. Yet still, nobles come. The desperate. The guilty. The ones who have already buried one son and would sacrifice another for salvation. They leave coin, or bread, or names. The boy has seen it, names scrawled on slips of linen. Always with a promise, he is good. He is pure. He is afraid. And sometimes, in the cold dawn after the stirring, a ring is placed in a noble's hand. Always warm. Always stamped. Once, a crest. Another time, a name. One cried. One laughed. One kissed the alchemist's hands, then went home to feast. The boy doesn't know what to believe anymore. He tells himself that maybe it's not real. Maybe it's a trick of fire and oil. Maybe the shimmer is just fat rising. Maybe the screaming in his dreams is his own memory, not a warning. But tonight, he will stir. The alchemist steps back, hands shaking from exhaustion, or triumph. Hold it steady, he says, voice hollow. Do not breathe when it sings. The boy nods. He steps forward, lifts the rod. The heat licks at his knuckles, but he does not flinch. Not yet. His heart pounds like a blacksmith's bellows. Beneath the basin, coals hiss with blood that fell hours ago. The air is thick. Still. And then. A shimmer. Not gold. Not yet. But something moves within the mire. A pulse. A flicker like the eye of a storm. The boy leans closer, and for one moment, sees himself reflected, not as he is, but hollowed, crowned, glowing from within. He does not speak. He stirs. Outside, the red moon lifts over the tower like a wound reopening. And far below, in the earth where failures are buried, the bones begin to shift. They are not done yet. The wind screams first, long and low, like the groan of a wounded beast buried beneath centuries of stone. Then the rain begins, soft at first, then furious, hammering against the shattered slates of an abandoned monastery on the edge of nowhere. Beneath a sky blackened by wrath and swollen with storm, a caravan creaks toward the gates. Its wheels struggle in the mud, drawn by horses too thin for burden, too tired for mercy. The men who walk beside it wear no colors, no crests. Only hoods, drawn low to hide their faces, their pasts, their fear. They stop before twin doors, bloated and rotting. Iron chains, once blessed, now rusted through with sin, strain as they are pulled apart. The gates open slowly, shrieking like an organ's last note. Inside, silence. Dust like ash, hanging in the air. A courtyard overgrown with bone-thin ivy, wrapped around broken statues of saints with their eyes gouged out. At the heart of it, the chapel looms, its steeple cracked, its cross long fallen, buried beneath thorns. They carry the body in silence. Wrapped in silk, bright once, now stained and tight like a shroud. Ropes coil around the limbs, not for restraint, but for reverence. This is not a burial. This is a harvest. Within the sanctuary, a single man waits. His face is hidden by waxed linen and years of forgetting. He does not speak. His fingers are stained black with ash and blood. Before him, candles flicker, fat, yellow, guttering. They are not made from wax. They are made from men. The air stinks of myrrh, too heavily burned. Smoke curls through the rafters where once monks sang psalms. Now it carries only whispers, murmurs of heat and hope and guilt. The alchemist kneels. He places a hand over the silk-wrapped chest. The body beneath is cold, light, barely a memory. A child. He bows his head and begins to pray. He no longer calls himself by name. Names belong to the living. He was once something else, a scholar of Cordoba, the son of light, the heir of scrolls and lanterns. He studied under the tiled domes where water echoed with poetry and truth. He drank knowledge like wine. Greek, Syriac, Zosimos. The lost teachings. The veiled books. He sought immortality. Not as the kings do, in marble or myth. But real. Flesh that does not rot. Light that does not fade. He thought the soul would lead him. That through purity, through philosophy, he could uncover the fire beneath the breath. But the soul hid. So he turned to the body. If God lived anywhere, it must be beneath the skin. Each night, by the light of human candles, he listens to the body's secrets. Eyes speak first, they rot with startling speed. The liver hums if heated gently, like a song remembered from the womb. Bone marrow glows faintly blue if the flame is true. He writes it all. Not in ink, but in what he calls memory. His ledger is bound in skin, still warm where the names burn through. Each failure is a hymn. Each success, a curse. He is not cruel. Not in his mind. He whispers over every corpse. He weeps when the cuts are deep. A chalice rests beside him, always half full, always warm to the touch. He says it carries the memory of the first success, and when he drinks from it, he hears bells. Sometimes, the bells cry. The bishop knows. Of course he does. His cathedral is not far. But there is gold in the bishop's ring, fine and pale, unlike any from the earth. When asked where it came from, he only smiles. And so he says nothing. For silence is cheaper than confession. Once, a nun escaped. She ran barefoot into the night, bleeding from where her scapular had been torn. She screamed of chants not sung by men, of jars filled with prayers too hot to touch. Of saints flayed and strung above the altar like banners. No one believed her. They said she had fever. That she wept for sins imagined. That grief had burned her hair white. They made her kneel. They made her pray. She never spoke again. And so the alchemist continued. In silence. In storm. In blood. Tonight, lightning splits the sky. The silk is drawn back. The face beneath is pale. Lips slightly parted. Eyes closed, but not in rest. The alchemist does not tremble. He has done this before. He whispers something, an apology, or a plea. Then he makes the first cut. The thunder does not interrupt. It rolls like judgment, slow and endless, pressing down upon the stones of the chapel. The candles flicker, casting gold against the boiling crucible. A small flame licks the lip of the basin. He begins to stir. Outside, the hooded men wait in the rain, unmoving. One holds a second bundle. Smaller. Still warm. The alchemist does not look up. He sings, low and broken, a language older than parchment. The formula is nearly complete. And somewhere, beneath the floorboards soaked in centuries of grief, something begins to glow. But it is not yet gold. It is something stranger. Something alive. And as dawn begins to bleed across the edges of the storm, the chalice on the altar shudders, ever so slightly. What rises next, will be the turning. The next chapter awaits. The bell tolls. Midnight. One long, hollow note ringing through stone and ash and memory. The iron clapper swings in silence, untouched. No hand pulls the rope. No monk walks the corridors. The abbey is long dead. Beneath its crumbling bones, past the chapel where saints once wept and novices bled oaths in candlelight, a crypt breathes still. Cold, wet, and echoing. And within that breath, fire lives. The alchemist crouches low beside the hearth, blade in hand, drawing it slowly across a whetstone soaked in oxblood. Each stroke rasps like bone against bone. Each spark caught in his eyes reflects centuries, flickering through the dust of empires, the prayers of heretics, the silence of tombs. He no longer sharpens to cut flesh. That was early work. Crude, imprecise. Now he sharpens to divide spirit from self, to split memory from marrow, soul from skin. In his mind, he walks through Alexandria as it burns. He runs fingers over papyri blackened by Roman torches, follows the ink of lost formulas hidden in Syriac margins. He hears the voice of Zosimos whispering beneath the screams. He believes he has found it at last, not the gold of kings, but something older, something true. Not transformation. Transcendence. They cast him from the University of Paris for this. Laughed at his thesis, then branded him for it, literally. A red-hot seal against his wrist. Heresy. That was the word they used. But he did not curse them. He left in silence, carrying only what mattered, a satchel of stolen scrolls and a fire that no doctrine could quench. Now the doctrine is his. The catacombs stretch beneath him like veins. Damp walls, carved by monks and infidels alike, snake through darkness. Here, his crucibles glow night and day. Their flames are fed by faith, by flesh, by what is left behind when the world forgets you. His subjects are never missed. Lepers, heretics, thieves. The faceless and the filthy. Those who once begged for bread now vanish beneath the abbey's bones. No questions asked. No prayers offered. His assistant gathers them gently. Offers them warmth, shelter, sometimes wine. Always mercy. At the start of each ritual, a hymn is sung, not loudly, but softly. Off-key. The notes fall like ash onto the stones. He says it calms the soul before separation, softens it, makes it easier to extract. He does not stir with spoons or rods. That would be sacrilege. His tools are holy. A pestle carved from Saint Bernard's femur. A stirring pin pulled from the coffin of a martyr drowned in the Rhone. He believes they carry a residue. Sanctity pressed into the grain of bone and rusted iron. The vat gurgles, always. Its smell is complex, fermented wine, old sweat, copper blood, something more ancient, something like a battlefield left in summer heat. Once, it worked. A single coin. Perfect. Heavy. When struck, it sang, not with metal, but with something deeper, like the echo of a cathedral's vaults or the sigh of a dying king. He wept. But not from joy. Not from pride. From ignorance. He could not remember who it came from. The ledger, smeared in that day's blood, was unreadable. Was it the beggar woman who smiled as she died? Or the boy whose leg bent like twine, who said nothing as the knife entered? He does not know. And that shame eats at him more deeply than flame. So now he inscribes every coin with a single word, remember. But memory, like gold, corrupts. The assistant, quiet, loyal, soft-spoken, has vanished. The door to the outer chamber hangs open, its iron handle slick with dew. He stands motionless beside the vat, listening. The silence isn't empty. It's heavy, aware. There's something wrong with the shadows. They do not move with the fire. They lean against it. He steps away from the hearth, blade still warm from the whetstone. Every step echoes louder than it should. Souls that might not have gone where he hoped. What if one remained? What if a name, forgotten, refused to fade? The fire flickers violently. The vat hisses. He turns. But there is nothing. Only the coin resting beside the crucible. Newly cooled. Untouched. And yet, singing. He picks it up. The edge is sharp. The face is blank. But the word isn't remember. It is his name. Not the one he discarded. The one he was born with. The one no one living should know. He gasps, and the shadows shudder. The door to the next chamber stands open. He hears dripping and footsteps, but not the assistants. Something waits in the dark, something that remembers everything he tried to forget. And in that silence, in that breathless hush before the fire flares again, we are left with a single question. What if the soul cannot be purified? Only preserved? And what if it wants revenge? A frost lays itself over the moors like a shroud. The grass stiffens with silver. The wind weeps through crags and dead trees as though mourning something no one remembers. The world outside is breathless, still, buried under the hush of winter's grip. But within the mine, heat lives where it should not. Beneath the earth, where miners once struck stone for kings and died coughing black into their beards, now burns a different fire, deep, unnatural, ancient. The chamber is hollowed from granite and sorrow. Walls scored with claw marks and scripture. And at its heart, crouched low before a hearth that smokes with pitch and flame, the alchemist stirs. Not to warm himself. Not to cook. Not for hunger. But for confession. A thick, blackened pot bubbles beneath the hanging braid of hair. Long, auburn, still damp with tears. He stirs slowly. Reverently. The broth is not food. It is memory dissolved. Identity liquefied. It is the soul, made viscous. He murmurs to it, not words of comfort, but equations. Lines of sin and salt. He's mapping something no priest ever dared chart. The anatomy of the divine spark. Long ago, in the dark undercrofts of Prague, he knelt beside mystics who whispered secrets no synagogue would speak aloud. They spoke of the golot, the breath that dwells inside the blood of man, hidden, sacred, smoldering. Not gold to wear, but light to become. He believed. He believed too much. And when the fires came, when mobs tore down temples and burned scrolls in the market square, he fled. With texts sewn into his cloak and vengeance sewn into his marrow. Now, far from the cities, far from any law, he works beneath the hills, surrounded by bones and soot and silence. His fingers are stained with ink and ash. His lips cracked from prayer. The chamber reeks of tar, saltpeter, and grief. Chains hang from the ceiling like garlands. Not to restrain, but to remind. That all metal begins with binding. Above the forge, bells dangle. Tiny, rusted, each sewn with teeth. When the steam rises, they ring, not sharply, but gently. Like lullabies for the damned. He speaks to no one. Except her. A locket rests beside his crucible. Inside, gray dust and a sliver of scorched ribbon. His sister. He tells her it's almost ready. That the work is near completion. That the gold will sing again, and in its music, she will return, not as she was, but better. Eternal. Unruined. Once, he forged a necklace for a dying boy. It shimmered as he laughed. For a moment, the room felt warm with hope. By morning, it had turned to ash. He didn't cry. He simply vowed to try again. Now, he works through nights and hunger. drawing equations with bone dust and oil, chanting in tongues lost even before Rome rose, building not a cure, not salvation, but a proof that man is more than clay and fear, that within his blood lies a metal fit for gods. He carves the commandments of this new faith into stone. The eye for desire, the hand for violence, the tongue for betrayal. Each has a place in the crucible. Each must be cleansed. But one thing still escapes him. The final catalyst. The transmutation of belief into being. Not death, not pain, not sacrifice, but willing surrender. Not a scream. A yes. He has tried everything. Please. Threats. Lies wrapped in kindness. But none have given themselves freely. And so the mixture collapses. The steam thickens. The gold dulls. The song never comes. His own body fails. Skin peels from his fingertips. His breath wheezes like wind through a broken flute. The mind groans above him. Cracks form in the stone, as if the earth itself grows impatient. He stands before the cauldron, holding the braid in his hand like a relic. His shadow flickers across the walls, long and thin, like a man already gone. He whispers to the locket again. One more try, he promises. One more night. Then. A knock. Faint. Delicate. Real. He freezes. No one comes here. No one should. Another knock. Then a voice, soft, trembling. A woman's. Please. I was told you could help. He doesn't move. The pot hisses behind him. She weeps. He can hear it in the stillness between her words. Not the wailing grief of performance, but true, exhausted mourning. He steps forward. The door groans open. She stands there wrapped in a thin shawl, hair tangled with frost, eyes hollow. Her hands tremble. And from one eye, a single tear falls, thick and golden. He stares. Breath caught. Gold. Not forged. Not stolen. Born. The moment he has hunted across decades. Through ash and exile. Through screams and scripture. The moment of surrender. He does not speak. Only steps aside. She enters. Behind her, the wind dies. The frost recedes. And as she descends into the chamber, toward the flame, toward the crucible, toward him, he feels it. For the first time in his life. He is afraid. Not of failure, but of what might finally succeed. And above, where the mind meets the more, the earth shifts, softly, like breath. Somewhere in the dark, a bell sewn with teeth begins to ring.